In this episode of Suits to Boots, we're forced to abandon our plans of moving towards organic farming and instead put down synthetic fertilizer, which, of course, also means we have to once again learn how to use a new piece of equipment, a fertilizer spreader. Follow along as we go from city life to first-generation crop farmers. Well, I am continued to be amazed by how expensive things are in farming for small farmers. I'm just leaving the big elevator right now where they sell fertilizer. For my tiny little farm with about 100 acres, 90 to 100 acres of tillable this year, it's gonna cost me $18,000 for fertilizer. And I already spent $12,000 on seed. So that's $30,000. $30,000 up front to be able to grow a crop. That doesn't include any of the other costs like equipment costs, fuel costs, harvesting costs, any other spraying, my chemicals if I decided to spray, which I'm gonna try not to this year. It doesn't include any of those costs. And for the amount of money I would get for the corn at the end of the day, the very tiny little margin that could be made on a corn crop for a small farmer like me, it makes it pointless to even do it. So there's money to be made at scale. And I think I knew that, but until you actually break it down for yourself and look at the actual numbers, it's hard to see that that's the case. So we have confirmed there is no money to be made in typical traditional row crop family farms. A little bit of an update. We've changed our approach here a little bit. I know I talked about not doing fertilizer and going a little bit more, using some more natural methods. Well, the more I'm learning, the more I'm realizing for this year, it's just not gonna be possible. I'm gonna have to do fertilizer. This corn is gonna need a ton of nitrogen. And when we did the soil samples, there just isn't enough there. It's not gonna grow like it should. The good news is I found a company that does more natural fertilizers. And so we bought some. Now, the downside is that it is not cheap. Obviously that eats into profitability on this corn, but it's got to get done. Otherwise we're going to have corn that just doesn't grow like it could and should. And so today we are getting that delivery of fertilizer. We're going to be spreading part of it with a spreader that they're going to be letting me use. And then the rest is going to go in what they call in furrow, which is like in with the planter. So my planter has dry fertilizer boxes. We'll be using my new grain cart to be used as a fertilizer tender. And then we'll be able to be putting the fertilizer in when we plant, right next to the seed. And it's called like a starter fertilizer. That'll really get the plant to take off. So we're gonna have to look at maybe next year, or actually it'd be the following year, because if we do beans next year, we won't need fertilizer. But the following year, maybe I will be at a point where I would have learned to do some things to where my soil doesn't need quite as much or any fertilizer. I'm not sure. We'll see. That's where we're at. We're waiting for the fertilizer truck to show up, and they're gonna be dropping off the spreader and then eventually the fertilizer. So here we go. All right, here we go. Here is the fertilizer. He's just pulling in. Hey, how we doing?
Not bad, sir.
I'm thinking we want to probably store it inside. Why don't we just see if it'll fit in there, and then if he can get in there with it, then if not, I'll pull it out when he comes. You're fine, and I can move whatever we need. Yeah, she's muddy everywhere today. It's good. Keep coming straight back. Anywhere's fine, I think.
Give you the rundown on this?
Yes, that'd be great. I have not, and that's why I was gonna.
Recording, are you ready?
I am, yep, go for it.
Hydraulic hoses. These are your hydraulic hoses.
Yep,
They're
got it.
shoved in here.
Yep.
540 PTO.
Okay.
Should hook to your tractor. Raise and lower the wheel here. And there is a safety stop on here for
I
road
see.
travel.
Yep.
You can just undo this.
Okay.
And this goes right here on this holder.
Yep.
So you don't lose this.
All right.
I just reclip it. Wheel hydraulically. When you lower it, it starts spinning. Which
Okay.
spins your apron.
I see. So that's what's bringing the material. They can keep spinning, but we just need to add material.
PTO is on because you might forget to turn that on, and you're turning this, and you're gonna
just drop it.
You got trail fertilizer like this, so just keep them on while you're spreading until it's empty.
All right, sounds good. Well, I'll let you know as soon as we're wrapped up here. So, all right, see you guys. Another thing we got going on is that the pastures that I have been converting from grass into tillable land by disking it. Well, first I burned it, then I disked it, and then I'm using a field cultivator, and it's not working great. The problem is that we've had so much rain that the grass just keeps growing because I never sprayed it. So you can see behind me one of the pastures right there, and it's like green. It's actually green, kind of back in here. That field over here is a field that we normally plant, so that's already been tillable land, but all this area is green again because the grass is growing again, because it's been so wet here this spring that I haven't been able to plant, and it's given the grass time to come back, which is a problem. Because as you can see, I put another dark strip down there. You can see the dark strip through there. That was me trying to do another pass with the field cultivator to kind of tear up the grass again to get it ready for planting. But it's so wet that I couldn't get through it. So we may have to wait for things to dry out significantly and then do another pass with that field cultivator and or maybe even the disc again. But I'm trying to not have to spray it and kill the grass with chemicals. I've been trying to kill the grass in different ways, but again, I may just not be able to do some of the things I planned with no fertilizer and no chemicals this year, because it's just proving to be more difficult than I expected.
So now that we had the fertilizer spreader, it was time to get our first load of fertilizer. But of course I had to move some things around. And first step was get the tractor. Of course, I forgot to unplug the hydraulic lines from another piece of equipment. They ripped out, no harm done. And I hooked up the spreader so they could fill that. Now they brought more fertilizer than could fit in just this spreader. And so I also had to move out my gravity box, which I just bought, never used before, so they could put the rest of the load in there.
They said part of it is dried manure from a dairy farm. So they like dehydrate the manure somehow and then add other things to it. So I think the brown particles are the manure. It says better farming through better soils, and that's why I decided to go with these guys, because it's synthetic fertilizer, but is it? They actually use actual cow manure to make a lot of it somehow, and so their goal is to try to get away from such synthetic stuff. And that's why I went with these guys. It was kind of a nice in between of like full synthetic fertilizer and like natural manure as fertilizer. Next year I can start looking at like chicken manure or something and spreading that to try to get away from all synthetic stuff. But it has like the double axle thing on it, so it's not like turning a normal trailer. It's got like a double axle thing going on, so it's hard to back up, but we got it. Looks like that is about it. I think they got it all. Yeah, thanks. This is a 19-5-13 corn blend for bulk spreading. 49 pounds of nitrogen, 14 pounds of phosphate, 34 pounds of soluble potash. We got calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. We got boron and copper, manganese, and zinc. So there you go. I'm gonna apply it at 251 pounds per acre. So now we gotta move it back in the shed so that it doesn't get wet. So let's get doing that. Piece here, the male end is going to go into this piece on the PTO, and there's different ones, and it looks like I have the right one. There's like a, what do they call this, the 500, and there's like 1,000, and so that's good because that's one less thing I'm going to have to figure out. But we should probably try to confirm that that's going to fit without any issues. So we'll pop that down. Oh, I see, you got to push the pin, and then boy, I don't know, maybe this isn't the right kind. We're just gonna turn it a little bit. There we go, look at that. It went on. There, and then I release the pin, it's on, so that's good. Right. think that's it. And then there's a couple hydraulic lines that have to get hooked up. Hopefully this pin I put in here is thick enough. It looks like it is. And then hopefully this tractor will pull this amount of weight, because I think there's a lot of weight in this thing. I don't know. All we can do is try. So these then are the hydraulic lines. This is what runs the, I'll have to look, there's two basically things that need power in this cart. One is gonna be the conveyor belt that's right here. That runs and pulls the material, the fertilizer, out the back. And then on the back, there's these spinny discs that throw it. And I'll have to look at, does the PTO drive the spinny discs? I'm pretty sure it does. And then this drives the conveyor belt. That way from inside the cab, you just leave your PTO on, is what I think he said.
So you can leave your PTO on, because you can't see back here, so
Yeah.
just leave it on while you're spreading.
I see. And then you turn the hydraulics on and off, because those are just easier to pop on and off, and that's gonna determine how much material is going out. So pretty sure that's all there is to it. Let's make sure those fit. Yep, those fit. So we're good there. Slide those down a little bit so they don't rub on the PTO. And I think that's really all there is to it. Get this up as high as we can get it. Okay, yeah, so the PTO I'm gonna leave on because that runs, the shaft comes all the way back from the front and it runs this shaft, which runs this gear, which then turns probably a belt or a chain inside here, which turns these giant discs or wheels. Discs? I don't know what these are. Spreaders. So these are always going to be spinning so that it throws it out. It's supposed to throw out 50 feet. And then your hydraulics will run the conveyor belt, which then you can see the material in there and it'll just come out. And they set it to the right height. This door right here opens and closes depending on how much flow is supposed to go out. So it looks like blended fertilizer is supposed to be at 2.5 something, probably inches. And so they set it at 2.5 inches high for a 50-foot pattern. So that should be all there is to it. That way, he told me if you leave the PTO on, these spinning discs will always be spinning. And the only thing you're controlling then is how much flow is coming out of there. Because if you do it the other way around, or actually he basically said if you leave the PT, or if you turn the PTO on and off, then what happens is you can forget to turn it back on and then they're not spinning and the material's just dropping straight on the ground. And you just get this like solid line behind you, which is not what you want. PTO needs to stay on. Turn the hydraulics on and off as you are spreading. Should be pretty straightforward. And then we've got extra in here so that when we run out of here, we can just fill. The only question I don't remember is this all of it for the spreader, or do they have to bring a second load? I don't think so, because he would have brought it all and just filled it in here, I'm pretty sure. And then I wonder, is it different stuff depending on spreading of it versus what goes in the planter when I actually plant? Or is it the same stuff? I don't know.
So as you know, we're turning some of our pasture land this year, about 20 acres, into tillable. And one of you guys mentioned I need to get a field cultivator. I've already disked the pasture, but now one of you mentioned that in order to get a nice smooth seed bed, I should get a field cultivator. So that's what I did.
All right, well, here it is, the John Deere, what is this? A 960 cultivator. So some of you suggested I invest in a cultivator, not so much for my regular crop fields because I no-till plant, but because I'm tearing up some sod, some pasture, and gonna try to plant it this year. And I used the disc, and that just worked okay. But hopefully this new implement will help us smooth out the ground for a better seed bed, so we'll see. All right, we're doing pretty good. It's helping. It's not making it perfect, of course, but it's definitely helping. I'm having to figure out the height, and I'm going up and down to try to figure out what the height needs to be so that my tractor doesn't have to work too hard. Well, in the last video I showed you that I got a rotary hoe for trying to, in fact, it's right there, to try to control the weeds without using chemicals. That, and also I'm gonna get a row cultivator. I just want to try to mess around with how can I manage weeds without chemicals, or at least as many chemicals. But somebody commented on here, and I appreciate it. They said, hey, that's not going to work unless you till beforehand. You got to have like dark, loose soil, not soil with a bunch of residue from the previous crop. I did not know that. And it makes sense because when I ran the rotary hoe, it would get clogged up with stuff. The problem is I have a no-till planter, which I realize you can still plant with even if you do till, but I thought the whole point with the no-till was to kind of help maintain soil health. So if I have to till and I'm gonna sacrifice some of the benefits of a no-till setup, then I don't understand the point of trying to figure out how to go without using chemicals, because it seems like it's lesser of two evils there. You kind of have to pick to either go without chemicals or to go no-till, like it's one or the other. I must be missing something, so I don't don't know, but I hooked up the field cultivator and I'm just gonna mess around with it in one of the fields and see. I don't know, I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna use the rotary hoe and the field cultivator to try to manage the weeds instead of chemicals. It sounds like I need to till the fields first.
Be sure to subscribe now so you can join us on our next episode where we start planting corn for the very first time. We'll have to learn to use our dry fertilizer boxes as well as our new gravity box with auger, which proves to be more difficult than we expect. All part of the joy of learning to become a farmer from scratch.